If you've been here a little bit, you may have picked this up, but if not, Call of Cthulhu is awesome. It's a very different experience to playing Pathfinder or D&D, which is kind of why I like it, where you're just a regular old person most of the time, at worst simply trying to survive, or at best actively trying to do what little you can to fight back against these eldritch horrors that are truly beyond our comprehension. It's one of my favourite systems both to play in and to run, so today I'm going to talk about a few Call of Cthulhu one-shots briefly that I think make a good introduction to the system. Of course, this is just my opinion, based on my experiences running the games, and your mileage may vary, but at the very least, I hope these suggestions can point in a good direction to start if you wanted to. First of all, we have the all-time classic that I'm pretty sure I've mentioned before, The Haunting. Set in the 1920s, that's Call of Cthulhu Classic, you have been tasked with investigating the Corbett House after all manner of strange occurrences and violent deaths have occurred there. You have to figure out why. It's a spooky haunted house situation, with a house that isn't huge, some local investigation options, and a pretty likely ending unless your players get some impressive rolls. Nothing about it pushes the horror boat out too far, mostly just spooky noises and things flying around and attacking you. In real life, of course, this would be another story entirely, but for a horror game, it's on the tamer side, which is a good place to start with new players if you or they aren't sure how much they can deal with. This adventure can be found included in the Quick Start Guide for 7th edition Call of Cthulhu. Almost like they knew. Anyway, another great classic one-shot is Deadlight, from Deadlight and Other Dark Turns. The other adventure in this one is great too, but there's a few more moving parts, so better for later down the line, I would say. In Deadlight, you're trapped at a diner in the middle of a storm, trying to figure out what happened to a young woman who stumbled out in front of your car with no real memory of the past few hours. You'll pick up the details from the others in the diner, as well as her memory slowly comes back, and you'll slowly start to piece together what happened before the end. This one is a fun, simple mystery that the players have figured out every time I've ran it, and I mean, that is in the best possible way. You get a real sense of accomplishment for piecing things together and figuring out how things went down and what happened. I can say it from personal experience as well, as a few years back I played it before I ever ran it, and I felt the same thing. I will say that this one is structured in a not super rigid way, so you have to kind of come up with how some of the events and details occur by yourself. So if you want something that's a bit more straightforward, then maybe stick with The Haunting, but I think that for players this is a great mystery to start with. It's a bit creepy, but doesn't get super dark apart from in one or two very specific places. Let's cover a couple of modern one-shots too while we're at it. First off, I'll briefly mention the one-shot I covered in the Weekend One-Shots episode, Pulvis et Umbra Summus, I think, which is from Fear's Sharp Little Needles. Fears as a book is certainly a darker in tone than general Call of Cthulhu, so do keep that in mind. But apart from people turning to ash, this one is okay. It's another one that involves you checking out a strange house, but gets even crazier after that. It has an easy 3-act structure to follow and has a good mixture of intrigue, horror and action. But it's covered in the Weekend One-Shots episode, so check that out if you want more info. Otherwise, we have Scritch Scratch, which I bought last year, but only got to run for the first time a few days ago. This takes place in a tiny village in England, where there's always been a rat catcher. Until now, anyway, you're kind of here as a result. It's a bit complicated, it's not complicated, but the story explains it well enough, I don't need to go into it here. It's a sandbox adventure, in that once you've arrived at the location, you can go anywhere you want and investigate things in any order up until the inevitable end point. This is another one that gives you a clear sense of direction, even though the order of things that are done can vary. It's also spooky and mysterious rather than outright horror most of the time. The ending is still tense and deadly, of course, but once again, it's more relaxed as an experience overall. The book also contains a number of asides featuring information about the real-life things it takes inspiration from, like rat catchers and the Green Man, which is a nice touch. This one is an adventure you can buy by itself, rather than being in a collection or a starter set too, so, you know, cheaper. Or maybe not, maybe the starter set is, but either way, decently priced. And there you have it, just a few suggestions for good Call of Cthulhu games to start with, either for new players, or as a new keeper, or as both. Links will of course, as always, be down below if you want to check them out. Hope you've all had a great Halloween and a great October. Can't believe the year's almost over. But we'll keep on rocking towards it. But until then, thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.